You are listening to the Apex Hour hosted by Ryan Paul on KSUU Thunder 91.1. This show allows more personal time with our guests, allowing them to give us their stories and opinions. We will also give you new music to listen to, hoping you enjoy some new sounds and genres. Welcome to this episode of the Apex Hour. My name is Reese Whitaker, the radio engineer for the Apex Hour right here on KSUU FM Thunder 91.1 Cedar City. And I turn the floor over to the executive producer, Sophie.
Thanks, Reese. I'm Sophia Javon, and I'm joined with Apex Director and Professor of History, Ryan Paul, and our special guest, Javon Johnson. I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Sophie. We are excited to have you here. Javon, thank you for being here on the Apex Radio Hour.
Thank you.
We've had an amazing experience today listening to you do some poetry readings. But let's start with kind of how we got to now. Maybe you could just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us kind of how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I'm going to try to make this story as short as possible because you're asking me a story that spans more than 2 decades now, and obviously we don't have 2 decades of time. But I started writing poetry in high school because there was a classmate of mine who, at the time, I thought was very attractive, who asked, she came up to me out of nowhere. I was like, hey, I heard you write poems. And I was like, what? And before I could tell her it was stupid and that I don't write poems, she was like, it's so sexy, you write poems. So, of course, me being me was like, yeah, what's up, girl? You know I write poems. I'm him. And so, long story short, that night I went home and I wrote the first love poem, which I'm certain was awful. She loved it, and the other girls around high school loved it. And then so the guys around high school started paying me money to write poems for them, so they could ask girls in high school out via homecoming, Valentine's Day, birthdays, whatever. They would literally give me like $5, $10. It was great. A young entrepreneur, if you will. And so what ends up happening, long story short, is that I learned that there was power in my voice, that people wanted to hear what I had to say. And I began to write about things that existed beyond sort of, can I take you out on a date? And I began to write about the things that were around me, be it gang violence, be it police brutality, be it poverty, drug addiction. I began to write about a lot of the stuff that I saw that I didn't know how to name, but I knew that felt true in my bones. And I just kept writing. And then when I got to college, I had started doing speech and debate in high school, and then I got to college and I kept doing it. And one of my competitors, actually, shout out to Armando Roman, Armando was like, hey man, I know you write poems, let me take you to a poetry spot in LA. And we went to this spot that was actually in Silver Lake, which at that time that neighborhood was largely Latinx, right? And it was ran by a poet named Jerry Quigley. It was called 33 and a Third. It was in a record shop, hence 33 and a Third. And it was there that I ran into 2 poets who I still keep in touch with today. Sekou Andrews, he was actually Grammy nominated this year. Shout out to Sekou. And then Corey Best Kept Cofer. And they were like, you're ready to go to the Lounge, right? And the Lounge is the largest weekly open mic poetry venue in the world, right? So there are larger monthly venues, there are larger annual venues, there are larger semi-annuals, but there's no larger monthly venue than this. They bring in around 300 people a week to listen to poetry. And that's where I made my chops. I started doing poems around other poets, so I was listening to them, talking with them, and that's when I met folks like Shihan, other folks who were really important to my own upbringing as a poet. But Shihan was Shihan was the most important. And it was just really, really incredible to be in that space. And he was the one that sort of really ushered in this sort of professionalization of spoken word. He ended up creating an agency of which I was under for a while, and a number of other things. And so all of that to say, I began touring professionally as a poet somewhere around 2005, 2006, somewhere around there. And it just sort of took off from there and just kept at it.
So I want to talk about your academic career here in a minute, but really what's in my mind is that there was some Oakland, California high school kid named Javon Johnson who was really the poet, right? And they just confused the two of you?
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, we got confused by them Oakland people. Oakland's our cousins from LA, but yeah, we got confused. But yeah, so it's an interesting thing. I don't know where she got that from in reality. Every now and then I think about it like, where did she come up with that? That's wild. But thank you.
It's interesting how some of those little things just kind of set the course of somebody wanders into your life and plants a seed that grows into a gigantic tree.
She inceptioned me. That's what happened. She got into my dreams and inceptioned me.
There you go. So let's start, if we could. Can we hear one of your poems?
Sure. I'm going to read something from the book. I don't often read these out loud, so it's always good to be able to read these. It's called Unlearning Freedom. The first time I slow danced with a girl was at a backyard party in South Central. It was a sweaty night and the air was too thick for anything but a slow song. I wore my flyest silk shirt, a thin gold chain that danced around my neck as if it understood the music more than I did. I had a cup full of Hawaiian Punch and 7-Up in my right hand. My back was up against the wall. I was watching all those black kids just learning to get free. Quiet as it kept, I was always afraid of dancing, of girls. But just then, SWV's Week came on and Tasha yelled, "This is my song," as if she wrote it. And to this day, I still want to believe her. Tasha, a dark-skinned black girl who wore thick scrunchy socks, airbrushed t-shirts, hoops, who kept her ponytail to the right side of her head. A few weeks earlier, Oatmeal told me Tasha liked me, and I came to the party to show her how cool I was. Our friends forced us together, and as she swayed her hips, Oatmeal grabbed me and made me move mine. He whispered in my ear, "You got this." Once everyone stopped watching me fumble my way through the song, Tasha told me to keep my hands around her hips. She held me and carefully taught me how to feel the beat, how to feel the rhythm, how to move.
Thank you. What was the name of that poem?
Unlearning Freedom.
Unlearning Freedom from your new book, Ain't Never Not Been Black.
Yes.
So are the poems autobiographical, right? I mean, how much of your work is autobiographical and how much is you just kind of go with it?
To my knowledge, 100% autobiographical. But the thing about memory is that when we remember a thing, we remember it, right? So we're putting it back together the best way we know how. So I imagine it's not 100% accurate, but to my knowledge, I'm not going in making stuff up in my head. That's precisely what happened. But I also imagine that in someone else's head who was there, they're like, it probably didn't happen that way.
Yeah. I think I'm always curious how does your process work that way? I mean, are you sitting down one day and all of a sudden say, "Hey, I remember this," and pull something out, or?
Yeah, no, for me, it's more of a kind of creative interrogation. So there are stories that stick with me that I can't let go for some reason. And I use poetry as a means to try to interrogate why it sticks with me, the stick-to-itness of it all. And so me writing about it is an attempt to dig into that stickiness of the story. Why won't it let me go the way other things in my life has, right? There's all kind of things I just don't remember. That's just how you just don't have the capacity to remember everything that's ever happened to you. And so, why did this story go away, but this one did not? And so I use the poetry as a means to interrogate it.
Do you ever use poetry as a form of catharsis to exercise, not exercise exercise a demon or that kind of thing, to heal or to repent or forgive?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Most of the poems, I have a difficult, if non-existent relationship with my biological father. Most of the stuff, people get me wrong as it pertains to him. I love that man dearly and I wish him well. A lot of the poems in there is an attempt to dig at and exercise the issues that we have in our relationship. So most of my stuff about him is around that kind of attempt to exercise, attempt to heal, attempt to move on, attempt to sort of deal the best way in which I know how.
So how do you do stuff like that without it being work? Does that make sense? I mean, sometimes, it seems to me when I've seen you perform and heard you work, it flows and it moves, and I know there's a lot of actual work behind there. But in the process of creation, do you ever just say, boy, this one's just too much work?
No, my favorite ones are the ones that's too much work. It lets me know that I'm getting at a thing. If it, you know what I mean? Like, how can I put this? Often it's just to say it without trying to give a metaphor around it or a different story. My favorite ones are the ones that are work. Make no mistake. Even the things that appear natural is work. There's work that went into it. You know, I guess a really good example would be like a Steph Curry shot. Man makes that thing look so effortless. There's massive amounts of work that goes into that.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying I'm the Steph Curry of poetry. That would be madness. I think of myself highly, but not like that. But yeah, that's wild. I am the LeBron of this.
Well, we'll think about that and come back to it later, maybe about which NBA person you are in the world
Kobe.
of poetry. Yeah, there you go. So one of the things we like to do, as we've mentioned to you in the Apex Radio Hour, is ask our guests what some songs that resonate with them, and for our break. So we're going to go into our first break, and one of the songs the song we're going to play is "Can We Talk" by Tevin Campbell. And I'm wondering, why did you choose this one?
So we talk a lot about how 90s hip hop affected and affects black masculinity, and I just don't think we talk enough about how 90s R&B does too, as if they're not two sides of the same coin. As if we didn't have a bunch of crooning black males and boys and men asking to be loved, asking to be held, asking to be tender. The Tevin Campbell's Can We Talk is quite literally a beautiful lesson in consent. Can we talk? And while we want to harp a lot on the violence of hip hop, I never want to dismiss the way in which black male R&B of the 90s poured just gallons of love.
Super cool. Let's hear "Can We Talk" by Tevin Campbell.
Last night I saw you standing
That was Can We Talk by Tevin Campbell. You were listening to the Apex Radio Hour here on Thunder 91. I'll turn it back over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Sophie. We are here today with Dr. Javon Johnson. He is an associate professor and director of African American and African Diaspora Studies at UNLV. That's the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. He holds a Ph.D. from Northwestern in performance studies with concentrations in gender studies and African American studies. And we are so grateful for here. He's the author of 3 books, by the way, including his most recent, Ain't Never Not Been Black. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is your first book of published poems.
Yes, it is. It is.
So we've been having a great conversation about poetry and other things. Will you give us another poem, please?
Oh, indeed. I'm trying to figure out which one. I think I'm going to do this one. Everyone had nicknames where I grew up. There was Banos, Big Brown, Cheese, Crook, E-Love, Pep, Spooky Blood. Blank was a killer and a hood pharmacist. We grew up in church together, he and I. His grandmother was strict. He was such a good boy on Sundays. What is it for black boys to live 2 lives when the world does not want us to live one?
Thank you for that. And you had mentioned that this idea of growing up in church, that your stepfather was a pastor. Mm-hmm. So was your family active in that, or was there some pushback from you as a kid, or?
So I grew up in the church. I was one of those kids that, I was probably in church easily 3 days a week on the low end. That was like a chill week. It was like chill. I was in the youth choir. I was on the youth usher board, youth Bible school. There was Sunday morning school. There was actual church. And the black church is a thing. Black church on Sundays is not an hour or 2. It's an all day event. You get there at like 9 a.m. for Sunday school. Depending on everything, because then you have church, and then after church, they feed everybody, and then you either visit another church or you have churches come visit you for like revival, Sunday night revival. Like you could be at church if you're black on a Sunday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. easy without a break. It's like, I think it's time. I used to joke with my parents. I was like, God probably said, get out today. He's like, get out, leave me alone. We're asking for too much today. But I say all of that to say my mother was really good because as I began to question things, she gave me the space to ask the kind of questions that I needed to ask to be secure in who it is that I am. So my mother gave me the real opportunity, like when I was in high school, to ask if I was going to keep going that much, or was I going to sort of not go as much? And I think that was beautiful. It wasn't easy for her when I scaled back. It wasn't easy for my stepfather as I scaled back, but the fact that they gave me the space to do so, I think was necessary and wonderful.
Did they ask that you fill that with something else?
No.
That, don't go, but fill it with something, or you just...
No, I was a good kid. Shout out to me. I was a perfect child. No, I was not. But no, I was a good kid. And, what I was doing football. And if I wasn't in football, I was doing speech and debate. And then if I wasn't doing speech and debate, I was in choir at school. If I wasn't in choir at school, I was doing theater stuff. If I wasn't doing, I was always doing something that it was like, we're proud of him. Leave him alone. He's chilling in the world.
Was there ever in my work and research on the black church, there's oftentimes this idea of the lyrical nature of sermons and almost the performance of religions. Was that ever an inspiration to you as you think about your performance space now?
Yes. Yeah. So some of my first, part of it is you have to understand, like I'm night in or weekly seeing really good orators do what orators do, right? And so, I got to watch. Like I remember there was this one preacher, I can't remember his name because he was from a visiting church, but he would come every now and then. I used to love when he finished his stuff because he used to be like, he had his whole spiel and he would come up with new ones. And I was like excited to see him. He was like, God is like Tide. He'll get the stains out. God is like Windex. He'll wipe you clean. God is, I was like, oh, he's coming up with more today. I used to love watching this dude. But it's also a play with language, right? There's poetry in that. right? There's also a play in not just voice, but there is a play with voice, a play with cadence, but there's also a play with making language do all the things language does. And I got to watch that every week and watch different people do it. Of course, that played its role, played a huge role into how I think about how speech functions.
It's interesting that it was Valentine's Day recently, and I had watched this thing about what makes a good love song, right? And will they ever go out of style? And it was Diane Warren who said, well, I mean, no, we all have the same notes, but we can all put them together in infinite ways. And it's very similar. There's only 26 letters of the English alphabet, but there are infinite combinations in which to connect and put those together.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not just putting the words together in the right space on the page. It's putting the words together in the right inflection of the voice and how that works.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it. I can't think of it, but they made a movie about, I think it was the guy who created the automatic wiper.
Yes.
And they were trying not to give him credit.
Greg Kinnear was the star of that movie.
Yes. And they were trying not to give him credit for it, and the car companies didn't want to pay him for his invention. And I think the lawyer made the argument is that we all have access to the same letters, but we don't tell the poet that that's not his or her poem.
Right.
Because of how they manipulated the thing themselves.
Yeah, that's interesting
So
thought.
it's similar. It's very similar.
So who inspires you? Who have you been your inspirations in that world? Poetry or language or whatever?
You name it. Like I love rappers, old and new. I was just telling the class earlier, like I even listen to like battle rap, right? Like, and it's violent. And I'm like, am I tired of these guys talking about guns all the time? Sure. Do I think it's pretty fresh that they could come up with new ways to talk about guns on a regular basis? Sure. I think it's creative, and I'm very caught up in the creative function of it. Rappers that I grew up listening to that have profound influences on me, Tupac, Jay-Z. I mean, there are tons. Even, he's on a whole different level now, but Kanye West, early Kanye was profound. Andre 3000. When Andre 3000 in the 90s said, I've been going through the same things that he had. True, I got more fans than the average man, but not enough loot to last me to the end of the week. I live by the beat like you live check to check. If you don't move your feet, then I don't eat, so we like neck to neck. Just the cleverness of that, is so good. But poets, I love Pablo Neruda, I love Langston. I love what Zora Hurston does with words and language. I'm just sort of going back. I love Amiri Baraka. I love his anger. I love the way Pablo Neruda makes love feel like a palpable thing that I could taste, touch, and eat, right? I love how people make use of words. And so if somebody's using words in a way, I love Malcolm X. If there's poetry in much of what he says, right? Like if you listen to those speeches or King's alliteration, right? Like there's so many people that I have listened to over the course of my life that have had profound effects on how it is that I think about art, and even contemporary poets, even friends now. I look at friends who do things and I'm like, I'm mad at you that you wrote that before I could.
Where then, I was thinking about the title of your book, Ain't Never Not Been Black. I mean, where does that come from in that experience?
On some level, it's how Black people use negatives in language, right? So ain't, never, not, right? So 3 negatives, right? But it's also how we talk, right? Like, I ain't never not done that, right? I ain't never, right? Or, double negatives and triple negatives. We do it all the time, which again is, I think, another way in which I've grown up listening to people make language do things it wasn't necessarily intended to do. And that to me is a poetry. But then it was also a friend of mine, a poet, Imani Cezanne, shout out to Imani. We were talking, I forget the name that I was going to give this book. And I don't know what we were talking about, but she and I joke a lot. We laugh a lot, very silly. And I said something. She was like, right. And I was like, I told her, I said something like, I ain't never not been Black. She was like, ooh, I like that. Let's tie it. I said, done deal.
How was the process in selecting which poems are going to go in that book?
Ooh, that was a while ago now. So I'm trying to think. Part of it is I wanted to have a mixture of things that I had written a while ago and some new stuff. I wanted a mixture of things so that, poets are very interesting, right? Like contemporary poets will say things like, well, that's an old poem. And I'm like, and? I would be upset if I went to a music artist concert and they're like, oh, I'm not doing none of the old stuff. It's like, if you don't play the hits and stop playing with me before I get my money back, right? I do think there's a way in which people want the hits, right? So a part of me, for lack of a better way of putting it, wanted to put some of the hits in, but I also wanted to provide some newer works that were created specifically for this, and tried to create, I think, or at least I hope, a cohesive narrative around this concept of blackness in the moment in which I was writing it, blackness from Los Angeles, right? Because this is very South Central specific at times, right? So kind of blackness as I saw fit.
So in this book, it spans the work of a decade. I mean, what would you?
Yeah.
Would you add or take away? I mean, is there a poem that you now think back and say that should have gone in there, or that's for the next book?
Yeah, next book I can publish more. Like I don't think a lot about that kind of. I get the value in that. I get the desire in that. But for me, it's like, I'll create something new. I'll create something again. It doesn't. If it didn't make it, it didn't make it. If something else could have made it, great. If something, it's not the end of the world.
And how do you balance the work of your poetry with the other work of academia, of academic research and writing and those kinds of things? Because your other books have really been more academically focused, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I don't know. I just kind of create and go in the world and say, it'll find a place. People ask me things. I'm like, I wish I had a more clever answer. I wish I had a better, this is how you do it answer. I just kind of create in the world and find a home for it. The first book is about poetry communities, but it's very sort of academically written. The second book uses poetry communities. I write the intro and the preface and let the poets write the poetry in that. And then the third book, which is this one, is my book of poems. I'm currently working on 2 academic texts right now. And I'm working on another book of poems that probably neither of which will see the light hopefully 2024 at the earliest, but probably won't be till 2025. Who knows? I'm out here chilling and just producing things, and then we'll find it a home once it becomes what it needs to become.
It's pretty. That's a pretty profound answer there.
I thought it was lazy.
No. Well, that's the difference, I guess, between you and I, because you are profound and I am lazy. There we go.
No.
Let's move on to our next break. So this is a song, the title's Changes, from Tupac featuring Talent. Do you want to give us a lead into this?
Yeah, Tupac was easily the most profound rapper for me. The way in which he toggles between thug and activist, I thought was very fascinating. I don't even think he's the best lyricist. He's not even top anything lyrical wise for me, but he was a poet. I think the passion that he puts in his lyrics is amazing. I think he was able to talk about emotions that rappers weren't talking about in the 90s. Things like Changes, songs like Dear Mama, and there's others that I could think of in name, but the way in which he moved back and forth between that space speaks to sort of the complexities of human. And he gave voice, I think, to frustrations, to anxieties, to concerns that I and many other people had at the time in a way that just was a ball of passion. So I had to include something. There were some other songs I wanted to include, but I knew they wouldn't have cleared. So, but this was one of them.
So let's listen to Changes from Tupac featuring Talent.
No changes. Wake up in the morning and I ask myself, is life worth living? Should I blast myself? I'm tired of being poor and even worse, I'm black. My stomach hurts, so I'm looking for a purse to snatch. Cops give a damn about a Negro. Pull a trigger, kill him, he's a hero. Get it to the kids who the hell cares. One less hungry mouth on the welfare. First ship them, don't let them deal with brothers. Give them guns, step back, watch them kill each other. It's time to fight back, that's what Huey said. 2 shots in the dark, now Huey's dead. I got love for my brothers, but we can never go nowhere unless we share with each other. We gotta start making changes. Learn to see me as a brother instead of 2 distant strangers. And that's how it's supposed to be. How can the devil take a brother if he's close to me? I let it go back to when we played as kids, but then changed. That's the way it is. Come on, come on.
That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. That's just the way it is. Oh yeah.
Hear me. Oh, come on. Oh, come on, come on.
That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. Oh yeah. That's just the way it is. Oh yeah.
I see no changes, all I see is racist faces. Misplaced hate makes disgrace to races. We under, I wonder what it takes to make this one better place. Let's erase the wasted. Take the evil out the people, they'll be acting right. Cause both black and white and smoke tonight. And the only time we chill is when we kill each other. It takes skill to be real time to heal each other. And although it seems evident, we ain't ready to see a black president. It ain't a secret, don't conceal the fact. The penitentiary's packed and it's filled with blacks. But some things will never change. Try to show another way, but staying in the dope game. Now tell me what's a mother to do. Being real don't appeal to the brother in you. You gotta operate the easy way.
I made a G today.
But you made it in a sleazy way. Selling it to the kid.
I gotta get paid.
Well, hey, well, that's the way it is. Come on, come on.
That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. That's just the way it is. Oh yeah.
Hear me. Oh, come on. Oh, come on, come on.
That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. Oh yeah. That's just the way it is. Oh yeah.
We gotta make a change. It's time for us as a people to start making some changes. Let's change the way we eat, let's change the way we live, and let's change the way we treat each other. You see, the old way wasn't working, so it's on us to do what we gotta do to survive. And still I see no changes. Can a brother get a little peace? It's war on the streets and a war in the Middle East. Instead of war on poverty, they got a war on drugs so the police can bother me. And I ain't never did a crime I ain't have to do, but now I'm back with the facts, giving it back to you. Don't let them jack you up, back you up, crack you up, and pimp smack you up. You gotta learn to hold your own. They get jealous when they see you with your mobile phone. But tell the cops I can't touch this. I don't trust this. When they try to rush, I bust this. That's the sound number 2. You say it ain't cool, but mama didn't raise no fool. And as long as I stay black, I got a stage strap. And I never get to lay back, cause I always gotta worry about the payback. Some buck that I roughed up way back, coming back after all these years. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat. That's the way it is.
That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. That's just the way it is. Oh yeah. You're my brother, you're my sister. That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. That's just the way it is. Oh yeah.
Something will never change.
That was Changes by Tupac. You were listening to the Apex Radio Hour here on KSUU, Thunder 91.1. I'll turn it back to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Sophie. We are with Dr. Javon Johnson, from professor of UNLV, and also a world-famous spoken word poet, right?
Not famous, but I want to be black famous.
Want to be? There you go. Which is the most important kind of famous, right? So let's, if we could, hear one more poem.
Yeah, so the reason why I mentioned the Black Famous, I'm going to read, I have a faux haiku series called Black Famous, because there is a thing about being Black famous. It's the kind of fame that mostly black people go, I know this guy was in something, but other racial and ethnic groups don't know because you're not watching the black movies. So, Black Famous, a faux haiku series. I just want to be Black Famous. With a show on BET, Black Famous 2. Perhaps I could be number 2 or 3 on the barbershop posters. Black famous number 3. One day I'll show up to see Cats on Broadway and yell, "What's good?" in words. We'll leave it at that. Black famous 4. Not too famous though. I don't want to be a hashtag. No Twitter coffins. Black famous 5. Not too famous though. I just want people to think he's familiar.
That's awesome. So as we've been talking and listening and reading some of your poems and listening to you earlier today, and by the way, your presentation will be up on the Apex website here in a week or two, so I encourage you to look at that. There are a couple themes that come out. You've referred to yourself as a love poet,
yes,
for one, and secondly, you've talked a lot about food, and I really liked the line earlier today about the sanctity of the taco truck. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little about those themes together?
Yeah, so much of like my upbringing, like the happiest moments of my life have been around family and food, right? I think about my grandfather, who was known for his smoked ribs, who was known for smoked turkeys, who made pumpkin pie from scratch, who made, in his mind, the best peach cobbler on this side of the Mississippi. I think about my grandmother and her chili beans. I think about my grandmother and her fried chicken. I think about my granny on my father's side, who had this amazing chocolate cake. I think about my uncle, who made his own barbecue from scratch. Barbecue sauce, from scratch, who also made his own wine. He was a very interesting man. He let me taste a glass and it was terrible, but he thinks it was good. I was like, this is not it. But I say all of that to say so much of these really big moments in my life involved familial gatherings and food, and lots of food, and the importance of being a good cook was a thing in my family, right? And so as I've gotten older, I began to learn how to cook myself. And I try to make really, really good meals. Shout out to my wife for tasting things that I don't know is going to be good, but we find out together. And sometimes, most of the times, yes, but sometimes it's no, and we eat it anyway.
Sometimes it's your uncle's wine.
That's not it. I have never. First off, the fermentation process is just it. I don't have the patience for it. But I say all of that to say, I also love going out and eating good food. Like I like, and for me, that can mean anywhere from a hole in the wall. It can mean a taco truck. I have never tasted better tacos than taco trucks. I don't care what restaurant you take me to. It's all irrelevant. If it ain't a taco truck, it's not of God for me. And the taco trucks are holy. They're a place of spiritual depth, and you get fed and you feel warm inside, and it's and you wash it down with a jarritos. I prefer pineapple. Others might prefer a different flavor. All of that's fine, but you get yourself 3 to 5 tacos. You get you some red sauce, some green sauce, and you get a jarritos. And that was one of my first dates with my wife. We went to go get some tacos from a taco truck. Like I was showing off. I was like, let me show you where this taco truck. It's so good.
And it was successful.
Yes.
When you refer to yourself, I understand the idea of food and bringing back these kinds of familiar memories. At what point, why do you refer to yourself then as a love poet? I mean, some of your poems are intense, I guess, and speaking from your experience. But I liked what you said earlier today about love, future love, right? This idea of being better. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, I always tell people I'm a love poet because I've started out writing love poems, and even the things that I write about, it's not simply a critique of, let's say, poverty. It's not simply a critique of, let's say, systemic disenfranchisement. It really is the desire for a better and more just and more ethical world, a kind of world that I think we can all love and embrace. And so I'm writing towards that world. And so what undergirds my issue is the love for something better.
Yeah. And it seems that also that requires accountability. From not only from you, but from other people as well, is recognizing that I think we go through life thinking that if I say I need to be better, that somehow I'm saying that I'm bad, but it's okay to say I can be better, right? I mean, that's the whole point of life. If you believe in a fundamental Christian faith tradition, the whole point is that you're better today than you were yesterday.
Sure, and certainly, Christianity has had a profound impact on my own understanding of ethics and justice. Yes, it is accountability. Like I was just having this conversation with my wife like last week, where I was like, I don't think you're necessarily bad, but I think it's okay to say I'm bad at something, right? Like I'm bad at things, and that's okay to say. But it's in that naming that I get to recognize where I stand, which then tells me how and where I should move forward. But if I don't name that, then there's no place for me to move to.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting the power of naming something in that you make very strong distinctions in your work between your father and your stepfather, right? That there's a difference between these two, but they both seem to have taught you something.
Sure.
Is that fair to say?
They both have taught me about accountability. They both have taught me about how to be a man, what kind of man I should be, albeit very different kinds of lessons, albeit my stepfather was one that was filled with a love. He was very strict. He got much softer towards the end of his life, as we kind of often do. There was this way in which it was really interesting to see him go from this really strong and tough man who used to move congregations to this man that was unable to move himself out of the bed, who needed assistance, that I had to assist him at times. And it was this very profound exchange, right? It was tough, but it was an experience that I don't ever want to forget. Right, that I helped him out of bed, that I helped bathe him at one point, right? That means something to me, because he also helped me out of things. He also helped me care for me, right? And who are we if not reciprocal beings, right? Who are we if we're not together in that kind of way? My father's relationship and my biological father is much more complex than that. I mostly learned from him who I did not want to be. And that's, is what it is. I pray for him on a regular basis. I wish him well. But that's where we stand. But both are lessons nonetheless. I want to refer to the philosopher Chancellor Bennett, also known as Chance the Rapper, who in a song with Cardi B says, I turned all of my L's into lessons. And I think there's a way in which we can do that.
With introspection and honesty.
With introspection, with honesty, with self-assessment, with whatever the case requires in that moment. But sure, I don't shy away from saying I messed up here. I don't shy away from saying I'm terrible right here. I don't shy away from those things. I own them, and I think it's partially how I grow.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting how we define, when we say I love you, that doesn't necessarily mean that I like you in some ways or instances, or that there's a difference. Love means something much
love
deeper.
And like are very different.
Right. And it means something much deeper than just, hey, you're okay.
I always tell people, I don't think, this is a quick aside because I know we're talking about something else, but look, I tell people all of the time, like is underrated in romantic relationships. I had to figure out if I liked my wife. And the easiest way for me to figure that out was we just sat in her studio apartment almost for a week and did nothing. We didn't go anywhere. We just kind of watched TV. We read. We cooked. I was like, this was a vibe. I could do this for a while, right? Because look, you go on a bunch of concerts. It's easy to fall in love with somebody if y'all at concerts all the time. It's easy to fall and be
especially like, Tevin Campbell concerts,
can
right?
we talk? It's easy to, if you're going to fancy restaurants all the time, if you're just doing a bunch of things that are fun, it's easy to kind of be like, yeah, you're dope. Can you sit together for a week and do nothing and feel you accomplished? Everything was an important question for me. And it also let me know that I like you. I not only love you, but I actually like you. And, I could kick it. Like, I can hang out with my wife. We like each other. It's like, oh, you cool peoples, man. Give me some dap. Fist bump.
Yeah, Alex, that's brilliant. And what wonderful advice for our young folks in the studio
Or old folks
or
who
old
ain't got
folks like
theirs,
me
yeah.
that like and love are very, very different things.
They're related, but you know what I'm saying? You got to like people too. You got to figure, depending on your relationship, right? Because I was about to say something. I sometimes I'm too honest, but I'm going to stop.
Well, no, you can say whatever you want.
I was going to say, there's all kind of people like, I love you, but I don't. There's people I see every day. I'm like, I don't really like you very much. Now people are going to be like, if they hear this, they're going to be like, is it me? Yes. If you're wondering if it's you, it's you.
If you have to wonder, it is you. So let's move on to our final break as we go in. This is a song by Kendrick Lamar called All Right. Do you want to give us a quick thought?
Yeah, so in the height of the protests, post the murder of George Floyd and the height, even before that, I mean, we've seen a rash of extrajudicial and judicial sort of murders of black people at a sort of just continually excelled rate. All Right, I think, became a kind of anthem for many of us that made us feel okay, that made us turn our energies in some very, very healing spaces. I remember being at a conference called Black Performance Theory, and it's really more of a gathering than it was a conference. There's only like 30 of us there. And then at the end, this was in St. Louis, and it travels, but at the end of it, we had like a kind of, they had a planned party kind of thing, where we just all kind of listened to music and danced a little bit. There's a bunch of academics, and that song came on. And I remember just dancing with a bunch of academics whose work I admire, whose work I think has been so profound and so moving and so necessary, whose work I teach. And we're singing and dancing and crying because we knew for a moment that we was going to be all right.
All Right by Kendrick Lamar.
All's my life I has to fight. All's my life hard times like, yeah. Bad trips like, yeah. Nazareth, I'm f***ed up, homie, you f***ed up. But if God got us, then we gon' be alright.
We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Huh? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright.
And when I wake up, I recognize you looking at me for the pay cut. Bahamas, I be looking at you from the face down. One Mac 11, even boom with the bass down. Scheming, and let me tell you about my life. Painkillers only put me in the twilight. We're pretty Benjamin is the highlight. I tell my mama I love her, but this what I like. Lord knows, 20 of them in my Chevy. Tell them all to come and get me, reaping everything I sow. So my karma come in heaven, no preliminary hearings on my record. I'm a gangster in silence for the record. Tell the world I know it's too late. Boys and girls, I think I've gone great. Trying to side my faces all day. Won't you please believe when I say, when you know we've been hurt, been down before. When our pride was low, looking at the world like, where do we go? And we hate po-po when the killer's dead in the street for sure. I'm at the preacher's door, my knees getting weak and my gun might blow, but we gon' be alright.
We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Huh? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright.
What you want? You a house, you a car, 40 acres and a mule, a piano, a guitar, anything. See, my name is Lucy, I'm your dog. You can live at the mall. I can see the evil, I can tell it. I know it's illegal, I don't think about it. I deposit every other zero, thinking of my partner. Put the candy, painting on a Rico, digging in my pocket. In a profit big enough to feed you every day. My logic, get another dollar just to keep you in the presence of your Chico. I don't talk about it, be about it. Every day I see cool. If I got it, then you know you got it. Heaven, I can reach you. Pet dog, my dog, that's all. Big back and chat, I trap the back for y'all. I rap, I black on tracks, so rest assured. My rights, my wrongs, I right till I'm right with God. When you know we've been hurt, been down before. When our pride was low, looking at the world like, where do we go? And we hate po-po when the killer's dead in the street for sure. I'm at the preacher's door, my knees getting weak and my gun might blow, but we gon' be alright.
We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Huh? We gon' be alright. We
right. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright.
I keep my head up high, I cross my heart, ain't going to die. Loving me is complicated, too afraid of life changes. I'm alright in your favor, dark nights in my prayers.
That was All Right by Kendrick Lamar. You were listening to the Apex Radio Hour here on KSUU Thunder 91.1. I'll turn it back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Sophie. So in our final segment, we're here with Dr. Javon Johnson, professor from UNLV and an amazing poet, and just not just completed, but his newest book is Ain't Never Not Been Black, and I strongly encourage you not only to pick up this book and read it, but to search him out on the web and see him perform some of these things. There are words that are amazingly put together, but when they're put together with the cadence of speech, they are transcendental. And I think that is your work, certainly. So in our last segment of the radio show today, we always go through this. This is things that bring us joy. So I'm going to start with you. Dr. Javon Johnson, what are you currently watching, reading, or listening to that is bringing you joy?
I'm going to go with watching. I'm reading and listening to things all the time. I'm going to go with watching. Right now, what brings me absolute joy is 90 Day Fiancé. It's television gold. I don't know if you want me to say more than that, but it's chef's kiss.
Is it the ultimate like or the ultimate love?
It's both. I love it. I like it. Those producers, if I ever meet any one of them, I don't even hug people like that. They're getting hugs. If they allow, they're getting them. It's just, mwah. I don't know what else to say about that show. It's so good. Are you familiar with the concept?
Yes, but why don't you?
So it's basically a show where Americans generally meet people from another country, fall in love, maybe, and then apply for the K-1 visa. The reason it's called 90 Day is because once you get that visa and they come to this country, you have 90 days to marry them or not. So it's an ultimate pooper, get off the potty type of situation. And the stakes, the stakes are just, because if you marry them and then you find out they're tricking you or whatever the case may be, which is what a lot of Americans are concerned with, you then are still stuck on the financial hook for them for up to 10 years. Oh, the stakes. And I watch it, the cultural clashings, the concerns. Why does everybody in America think everybody outside of America is trying to take advantage of them? No one is coming to, he left the beaches of wherever to live. I could go. I'm going to teach a class on this one day. I promise you. It's so good.
There you go. Thank you. All right, Reese Whitaker, what are you currently watching, reading, or listening to that is bringing you joy?
So this week, I haven't got the chance to watch or read or listen to anything. I've been really excited about the Super Bowl just ended, and then Super Bowl 58 next year is going to be in my hometown of Vegas. So they revealed the campaign, and I've been nerding out over the logo because the new style of Super Bowl logos is very creative compared to what it's been for the past 15 years. So I really like the colors that they picked and the Vegas roots going into the logo. But I did want to say, and I almost talked about it during the break, is that I want to get this book that we've been talking about, because when Javon has been talking, especially in the last break, about the food that his family cooked or the taco truck, you talk like a poet. And I feel like when you're talking to us, you're making new poetry with your cadence and stuff. And every poem that you've read has been fantastic.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to read it. I don't like reading. I'm going to say that right now.
That's fine.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
There you go. Evan Miller, what are you currently watching, reading, or listening to that is bringing you joy?
Recently, I've been reading, or rather listening to, a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's really changed my perspective on a lot of things. It's basically a comprehensive breakdown of how to build habits, how to break bad habits, things like that. And for my first semester at college, it's been very helpful to maximize my time.
Great. All right, the moment you've all been waiting for. My friend Sophie Javage, what are you currently watching, reading, or listening to that is bringing you joy?
So I was thinking about this morning, and what brings me joy is my relationships with other people. And after we went to dinner last night, I my parents sent me flowers for Valentine's Day, and so I was calling them last night and telling them thank you. And I spent the next hour and a half just talking on the phone with my dad, and we were talking about this show that I introduced to them over Christmas break. And I really didn't think they were going to watch it when I left, but my dad had started talking about how he had been watching it, and he's all the way on season 3, and there's 24 episodes each season, and it's called The Blacklist, and it's murder mystery kind of ish. It's really good, but it just brought me so much joy that I can share this show with my dad, even though I'm not living at home right now, but we know what's going on, we have something to talk about, and so that's what's sparking me joy this week. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, Ryan, what are you watching, reading, or listening to that is sparking you joy?
Well, as you know, I have been a big fan of the comic book since I was a kid, been collecting for many, many years. So I am enjoying immensely Netflix's adaptation of The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. And if you've never seen The Sandman or read The Sandman is the Lord of Dreams with his siblings' despair and death and desire and destiny. And I strongly recommend, if you like poetry, you read Neil Gaiman's writing of The Sandman. But that is an amazing adaptation of his award-winning comic series. So that's it. So with that, we would like to thank everyone for listening to the Apex Radio Hour. We'll go out with Javon Johnson's last song, Never Would Have Made It by Marvin Sapp. You have a quick word about that?
It's I still love black gospel music like nobody's business, and it's just a beautiful song about perseverance, and mostly Marvin Sapp is talking about perseverance thanks to his Lord and Savior, and I just think that message alone is amazing. And here's the wonderful part about it. I think if you're not Christian, I think you can get a really profound spiritual experience from this song of perseverance, even outside of that. So I think it works on both of those levels, and it's a song that I often return to that I thought I would share.
Okay, thank you. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. Thanks, Javon. And this is Never Would Have Made It by Marvin Sapp.
Never would have made it. Never could have made it without you. I would have lost it all. But now I see how you were there for me, and I can say never would have made it. Never could have made it without you. I would have lost it all. But now I see how you were there for me, and I can say I'm stronger, I'm wiser, I'm better, much better. When I look back over all you brought me through, I can see that you were the one I held on to, and I never would have made it. Oh, I never could have made it. Never could have made it without you. Oh, I would have lost it all. Oh, but now I see how you were there for me. I never would have made it. No, I never could have made it without you. I would have lost my mind a long time ago if it had not been for you. I'm stronger, I'm wiser, now I'm better, so much better. I've made it through my storm and my test because you were there to carry me through my mess. I'm stronger, I'm wiser. made it. I'm stronger. I'm stronger. I'm wiser. I'm wiser. I'm better. I'm better. Much better. Much better. I made it. 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 Never would have made it. Never would have made it. Never could have made it. Never could have made it without. I would have lost my mind. I would have gave up. But you were right there. You were right there. I never would have made it. Oh, I never could have made it without you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Apex Hour here on KSUU Thunder 91.1. Come find us every Thursday at 3 p.m. right here on Thunder 91. We would love for you to come to our events on campus. For more information, check out suu.edu/apex. Until next time, that was the Apex Hour on Thunder 91.1.